Well, good afternoon, everybody. Appreciate you being here and covering the team certainly. And for us, we're excited to get started spring practice and had our first day today. So it was good to get on the field and something we always look forward to. And some things don't change over the years. Everything's kind of done in phases. Our guys got back here in January, and the first thing in front of them is the winter program, which for us is really critical. Not only in terms of their physical development, but also, growing as a team and just their mental growth as well. And I think this year, it was even more interesting because, the mix of newcomers, first of all, was our biggest group of newcomers, 11 guys joining the team. And then the mix of newcomers, too, with veteran players as opposed to the past, typically high school guys. So that's really been an interesting process for us, and we got two more guys that are scheduled to be here in June. Looking forward to that as well. So all that being said, just you got different perspectives, new mix of people, and it's something we really didn't want to take for granted. Make sure that the guys had a chance to transition into the program, regardless of age, experience, etc. And I think the commonality is they all want to play football and they all want to be in a place where they're welcomed and feel a sense of belonging. I think their feedback that we've gotten has been really good, and it's kind of interesting. They comment about the food. Our guys eat really well, and that's by design. The fact that the facility has really been such an upgrade for our program, being in here now since 15, get feedback on that, but just little things like the fact that our guys eat together, not every meal, but we have, meals during the course of the week where they all sit down and actually look at each other and talk and things like that, things we couldn't do in our old building, little things that we kind of forget about sometimes. And also I've heard a lot of feedback about the way we train and the job that our strength coaches do in the weight room, and that goes back also to the onset of the program. It just, I think it's important players get coached in all phases, and certainly it's good to hear positive feedback on that. So that part's all good. And then the other component is the Hawkeye Championship, which begins basically in early February. Once the guys get settled in, that belongs, and it just, I think, helps create a little sense of unity, teamwork, etc. It gets guys to reach across positional lines, age lines, all those kinds of things. And the feedback, again, there's been really positive. So all those things have been in works, if you will, the last 8 weeks or the 8 weeks before spring break. And I think we made a lot of progress there. So happy about that. And then certainly as we phase into spring practice, things don't change there either. You're always anxious to get a look at newcomers, a little different this year, again, given the numbers and ages and all that type of thing. And then basically you want to assess everybody on the roster, because the whole idea of the past 8 weeks is to see growth. And then most importantly, how's that transfer to the field? And we'll go through the same thing in the summer and as well. So you look at it with a fresh eye, get guys on the field, and see how they're progressing. Thing I've always enjoyed about spring practice is it's pure football teaching, if you will. There's no game plan to get ready. There's no clock on us. Be ready. It's 11 o'clock on Saturday or whatever time it may be. So it's more just about the development of the individuals and just teaching football and teaching the skills, the fundamentals that are going to be really important for them to have success. And then the other thing that doesn't change in spring, you always have challenges with numbers, just body counts, if you will. Graduation's the first thing on the list there. So you always graduate a group of players, and certainly no different this way or this year. And then the injury factor is always a deal. Guys that have out-of-season surgeries, and I think we're close to a dozen on that, under a dozen, but approaching that number. Guys that had to get surgeries, those types of things. So not unlike last year, you think about our linebackers were out basically all spring, the 3 starters. So, you just always have to deal with that, but that creates opportunity for other players as well. And then the last component you're always challenged with is the leadership void. And, certainly got a good reminder of that the other day. We had our pro day out there, and I think we had 9 guys working, I think 7 seniors, I believe it was. And that's always a good reminder of what you're losing. So it's kind of bittersweet, if you will. You're eager to see those guys be excited and have a chance to interview, if you will, for NFL teams, but it also just kind of hits you right in the face. What a role these guys all played in terms of playing well, but also being good leaders for us. So those are kind of the challenges that we're looking at right now. Today, as I said, was our first day on the field, and I think we got off to a positive start. And the real key right now is just how we can focus through the next five weeks here. Moving forward as a football team, see what kind of questions we can answer and go from there. So just before I wrap it up, and we'll talk, happy to answer questions. But again, just want to wish all the best to our guys that are aspiring to play in the NFL. It's not a program goal of ours, but we're certainly excited for anybody that has the opportunity, and hope that they do have that opportunity and can chase their dreams for for the years ahead. And I said, had 9 guys out there the other day, and a couple guys from the past also came back and worked out just to get some exposure. So wish those guys all the best, and just also want to publicly congratulate Lisa Bluter and her staff, and more importantly her team, just on what a great season and the great success they've had all year long, certainly this past weekend, and wish them all the best as they head out to the West Coast here for the Sweet 16. So I'll leave it at that and throw it out for questions.
Kirk, when you look at the players who are on Monday for the pro day, you're going to replace them on the field, but they're intangible gifts. Jack Campbell, Sam Laporta, Kayvon Merriweather, Riley Moss, especially those 4, just seemed jumped off the charts. Yeah. How do you do that, and is that a more organic? And now having newcomers who have filled those roles at other places, do you look to them to kind of fill that, whether it's Cade or Eric or something?
Yeah, we have to, and it's you can probably include all those guys. Benson, I'm going right down the list. Those guys, the roles they played, and it's there's obvious things you guys see on the field, game field, but there are things that we see in the building or away from the building, things you hear about, guys, maybe giving advice to younger players and what have you. So it's always, like I said, it's kind of sobering when you see them all out there in a cluster, in a group. But the flip side is, I think, and again, this goes back to probably February, I think the guys have done a good job of, the guys that are older guys now have seen good leadership modeled, Riley, all those guys. So they've learned from them, and I think they also feel, an obligation to help fill those voids. And they have to earn that. It's not something you can give anybody. They just got to earn it through how they act and how they go about their work every day. And that's, sitting in the Hawkeye Championship meetings and sitting in with the Hawkeye Championship captains, listening to their dialogue and exchanges. See a lot of positive things there and a lot of growth. And you mentioned somebody like Cade who, just looking across the field at him, sure struck me as a leader. And watching him on film going into that game struck me as a leader of a really good football team. So that's kind of an added plus when you can have somebody, join your team like that who's got that experience already. But all that being said, he fully realized he had to come in here and earn it with this team and this group of guys. He's done a great job there. Yep.
Speaking of which, what's kind of his availability this spring? Is it kind of piecemeal, or is he full throttle at this point?
Yeah, no, he's not full throttle, but he's still coming off the rehab, the surgery. Good news is he's been throwing some individual stuff, just throwing on his own, but he's able to do some 7-on-7 right now. So as long as there's nobody around him, I think as long as he's comfortable, we're going to let him, participate in that. He's not going to move around a heck of a lot right now. I think we're still probably a month and a half, 2 months away from him being full speed, but he's able to do some things like that. And we're a little short in the line right now. That's, there's always a challenge every spring right now. It's our offensive line, so it gives us a little more time for 7-on-7. I think that's been great for him, and he's learning the system most importantly, but also, getting to communicate and, actually do some throwing with the guys.
Along those lines, Eric Hall, what's his availability this spring like?
Yeah, that's positive. We weren't sure initially 2 months ago, but he's really come along really well. I think the first positive thing, he went skating. I think it was in Cincinnati still, back at Christmas time. So that was a good sign, but he's really progressed well. We'll be smart about how much he works, just not to overdo it right now. But, he was full speed this morning. We expect him to be out there all spring.
Who else is maybe out this spring? I know we saw Noah Shannon recently, and he was said he's going to be out. Are there
if we got enough time. Yeah, it's no, I mean, literally, we got, like I said, about close to a dozen, I think about 10 surgeries that we had, either in January, and we've had a couple since, and had a foot injury, Jake Bostic, unfortunately. And then we've got, probably another 10 or a dozen soft tissue, issues that we're dealing with right now. And when you train hard, things are going to break down sometimes. That's one of the, how hard do you train, how, all that stuff. But it's one of the byproducts. So hopefully we'll be getting some guys back. I mentioned we're a little thin in the offensive line. Hopefully we'll get a couple guys back here next week or the week after, and that'll, be able enable us to, ramp things up a little bit more. But, we'll just adjust where we have to. I think today went well, and just try to, look at the big picture and not sweat out every little detail of what's going on today, but keep the big picture in mind.
Saw Kelby on the 2D. What have you seen from him that has really impressed you?
Yeah, well, yeah, too deep, but almost by default. And I don't mean that in a derogatory sense by any stretch, but he's really improved. He kind of came alive, and I mentioned, spring's always fun to see what stories. I thought he came alive during bowl prep the month of December. He finally seemed like he was gaining some traction and showing up in some areas that maybe we hadn't seen before. And, prior to that, he's on the scout team for the 13 weeks before that. So that's a nice phase where guys that maybe are working on scout teams get a chance to get looked at. And, he's always been a good athlete. Now he just seems a little bit more comfortable. And I don't know if where he's going to factor into the playing component part of things, but I could see him on special teams and, maybe gaining traction there. But he's off to a good start.
In regards to the player lawsuit and the recent news of the settlement, what do you just see as the next steps for the program as, I guess, like that chapter is now closed?
I think that's been resolved. There's really nothing more I can say about it, and our focus has been on what's in front of us, and I think we're in a really good spot right now. Our plan is to stay vigilant, just like in every area of our program.
Just a follow-up on that, Kirk. We haven't spoken to you since you released this statement, but you said the decision to settle has been dismissed with prejudice. Why did you believe it would be dismissed?
I'm sorry?
Why did you believe it would be dismissed if it had gone to trial?
It's my opinion, and I was very involved in it, and worked very closely with the legal experts on the whole thing. So that's my opinion. That's what I stated. Said it's been resolved, and there's really not much more I can say.
Feel the communication was where it needed to be between you and everybody involved with Iowa? Are you satisfied with that?
It's, it really doesn't matter what I think. The matter is resolved, and we're moving forward.
This is the first time that we've talked since Brian Ferentz had his designated performance objectives added. What was the process behind that, and was that something you were supportive of having in there?
That was really between Gary and Brian. That arrangement, Gary supervises Brian for obvious reasons. So, that's really the same thing. It's in the books. We're moving forward, and that is not something we're thinking about. We're thinking about, our whole football team having a great season.
Can you go a little bit more in depth on what the Hawkeye Championship is and why you've implemented that this offseason?
Yeah, it's something we started, I don't know, maybe 15 years ago. I'm not really good on the specifics, but, I have a habit of collecting articles, just throwing them in a file and then read them on airplanes, things like that. And I believe it was a strength coach at Kent State. I think they were doing it, Kent State football at that time, probably 15, 20 years ago, like I said. And he had been at Southern Illinois, if I remember correctly. But anyway, took that up there, read about it. It sounded pretty interesting, so we brought it back here and, talked about it as a staff, and then we shaped it up. And it's something we've been doing for quite some time. But basically, our players elect 12 captains. It's varied a little bit every year, but right now we've kind of settled in 12 captains about a week or two after we start the winter program. Then those captains draft teams, and we set up competitive things. There's a performance component to it in terms of what they're doing in the winter program or even summertime, but also with that is academic performance. Basically, if you want to win, basically if your team's dependable, reliable, and consistent, consistency is a big component. You get a lot of points for that. Community service, a lot of different incentives, those types of things. So it sounded like a good idea at the start. I think one of the neat things we've learned from it was it's like everything, you learn things after you do it or try it. It was neat to see, a freshman defensive back sitting with a senior offensive lineman, guys that may never spend time. Back in those days, we didn't have training table or, an area where they could meet together and eat together. So it's just kind of opened up, I think, more communication with the team. And, I think everybody takes pride in the team's performance, their individual teams. So it's been really good, and it gives us an opportunity to break into groups and have discussions on different topics, those types of things. So, it's kind of been a win-win for us. I think our players really enjoy it. Most importantly, they take a lot of pride in it, and it's typically pretty competitive.
Coach, what was your assessment of Lucas Van Ness as a player here, and what are some things you've told NFL teams about him?
Well, obviously he's a really good football player. I think you read the mock drafts and all those kinds of things, and nobody really knows right now what's going to happen in the draft. That's one thing I can say, other than a couple quarterbacks are probably going to go high, like every other year. But obviously he's a really good football player. It was great having him on the team. I was just talking to somebody I remember, it seems like yesterday, it wasn't, but first time I saw him was in the library at Barrington High School, whatever it would have been 4 or 5 years ago. And, I knew his sister went to school. The coach up there, Coach Sanchez, says, his older sister's a freshman or sophomore business student at that time. So, he was just a young kid at that point, a junior in high school, probably 220, 225, and then he showed up here in June. Came to camp, same camp Y.A. Black was at, and it was on a Friday night. And looked a little different, and that's, the scary part about recruiting. We start so early now, but he changed, not dramatically, but matured since, 6 months prior to that. And we ended up offering him out of the camp. Felt really good about him, and he's been nothing but a great player for us. He does a great job in the classroom, and he's got a tremendous future. So, just really excited for him over the next couple months here.
We talked a lot about Cade. What have you seen from Deacon Hill?
First of all, he's big. He's bigger than most quarterbacks I've been around as a first impression. But then, so he throws the ball well. He's got a great personality. So we're really excited. There's only one practice out there, but I think he has a good feel for what's going on, what he's doing, and throws the ball very, very well. So, excited to have him on the team. He's been tremendous, and I think he's enjoying it.
Jamari Harris is back on the depth chart, and a year ago he was kind of an ascending player. He had 4 interceptions, maybe played his best game in that Citrus Bowl. What are your expectations for what he can do after sitting out for a year?
Expectations are high. Obviously anytime a guy's hurt and misses time, you worry about how they're going to come back, but it's going really well for him. He's doing great, and I think it's the neat thing about college football. And there was a defensive coordinator here on Monday, who made the comment. I think he was last coaching in college maybe 10 years ago at Florida. And he just talked about missing, the development. He said, you got to be excited about spring ball starting and just, having a chance to see guys. So he fully gets it. And Jamari is one of the guys that comes to mind. He went through a really tough circumstance medically. That's just a tough injury, and it was so disappointing to him. He tried to come back, and it became apparent when he did try to come back that it wasn't going to, be positive. So he went ahead and had it addressed. But all the way through, he's been invested. He's been a great teammate on the field, totally involved. He's been helping lead, and you talk about the leadership void. He's going to be one of those guys. He'll be out. He is out in front. Will be. He is totally invested. And then, I just remember, however many years ago, it's been 3-4 years ago, him being here the first time with his mom and grandfather. I think she'd had 2 wisdom teeth taken out. The grandfather drove him, and it's the first time we met him. We hadn't offered him at that point, but he just kind of impressed us then. But the growth that he's had since that time, that's a fun part.
Didn't see Seth Anderson on the depth chart, but what do you think could be his role this year, and how have you seen him so far?
He's been great in the program, soft tissue injury. So I don't know if we'll get him back on the field or not. We'll see. Keep our fingers crossed. But tremendous young guy. Looks like a good athlete and great attitude. And everything's been positive. We just, unfortunately, before break, he had a soft tissue injury.
Kirk, could you see any circumstance where Cooper gets a look on offense this spring, or is that just hype?
Yeah, if we had more guys, we would have done it last year too. But you saw what happened. We took them out. So it's, our cupboard's not quite as full as maybe some other people's, and that's, Cooper could play anywhere on the field. I think on the perimeter, offense or defense. I believe that. Any of the 5 DB positions, and probably, I wouldn't put him at fullback, but thought about quarterback. Believe me, we had Labus in the bowl game, basically, right? That was it. So, it's him or Sam. But yeah, he's that kind of athlete. He's just a really versatile, tremendous athlete. And, if we had that opportunity, but right now we're not even thinking about it. We're just trying to get a 1 deep figured out right now.
For a couple weeks back, you had at least a couple prominent lawmakers in the state calling for your athletic director to resign or be fired. Do you have any response to that?
No, I really don't. We're thinking about this season, this team.
Along those lines, when you're talking about in the secondary, you look at the 2 deep, you have guys like TJ Hall, Deshaun Lee, Cohen Intringer, guys who got a chance to learn behind veterans last year and assuming more responsibility this year. What type of opportunity do they have this spring?
I'll start with Cohen. He did a really nice job all fall. And probably would have played some in the bowl. And then, unfortunately, he got hurt in December, so that kept him from being on the field. But he was really doing a good job, and really anxious to see, I mentioned Deshaun, TJ. both those guys, are young guys right now, and this is a really valuable time. They did a good job in December, and this will really be helpful for them. If we're going to have a good football team, we need them to take the next step, and I think they will. I really feel good about the way they work, and they're great guys in the program. So all three of the guys you mentioned are really, critical for us. Talk about improvement. For my money, Castro played his best football in December. That was the best game he's played with us. Made some really nice plays against good people, and so you hope that's part of the. We just need everybody to keep moving forward and developing.
How do you feel about your linebackers right now?
We're thin, but we got some quality guys. Start with the. It's easy to pick Jay out because Jay played a lot last year, and he's just really been a guy who's ascended in the program. To think we're going to replace Jack Campbell is not realistic. We don't have a guy like him, but the group I'm excited about, and just cherry pick. You got Jay, Carson, and Kyle Fisher, and Kyle are the same thing. We really see him ascending right now. Carson's a guy that's really intriguing. So this spring will be really important for them. Jaden Harrell, this will be a good opportunity for him. Talked about Kelby earlier, and so it's a good opportunity for all those guys to move forward. And that is one position where we have a newcomer coming in June that I think is a pretty established player. Not saying he's Cade, but it's very similar kind of background that way.
Kirk, we got the chance to talk to Cade a couple weeks ago, and he said it's really refreshing getting the kind of support from Brian and John Budenmeyer, just from them asking for his feedback on certain plays and the offensive philosophy. I guess just from your perspective, how have those meetings happened throughout the course since he's gotten to campus, and I guess what's the optimism that the offense is just trajecting on the right path?
Yeah, to start, I'll give you a quick just picture of things. So you go from the last Saturday in July, we had 20 prospects on campus, 18 of whom, at the end of the meeting, we briefed on all 20 guys, and I said, okay, so let me get this straight. 18 of the guys out of the 20 have not played a snap of junior football yet in high school, and 2 other guys hadn't been playing as a sophomore. And I don't, it's just the world we live in now, so I'm not complaining about it, but I'm just stating in fact. But the comparison I give you, you take a guy like that, and then you play a guy, or sit down with a guy who's beating us in the championship game 2 years ago. Just the conversations are different, and that's where it's kind of a neat opportunity in some ways. I'm not totally anti-portal or this transfer stuff in that, it made perfect sense for him, and we've had quarterbacks leave here and find better homes, or find homes, if you will, where they're able to finish out their careers and do really well, and I think that's just how it worked for Cade. But you're talking about a player now who's actually been out there playing college football and done a lot of good things, and so I think that the level of those conversations is a little different, and level of expectations a little different too, both ways. What he expects from us and what we expect from him. But it's a real contrast, and that's what makes things interesting, quite frankly. Yep.
Your offensive line took a lot of lumps last year, some growing pains, and some didn't develop quite the way you wanted them to. Where do you see things right now? And do you think that trio of juniors who started every game last year can take that next step? And then where does a Dejon Parker fit into this?
Yeah, so a couple aspects there. I am confident. I think I hopefully shared that in January. But I've seen certainly more film now since then. Yeah, the more I watch on it, you can't, especially in the offensive line, it's just hard to duplicate experience, and whether it's playing or else practicing. I think that's really where, and I went over the litany of challenges that we've faced the last 2 years probably with that group, and continue to face, because again, we're a little thin right now. I wish we weren't, but we are. Because from my experience, the only way you get better is going out there, and you got to practice, you got to rep it, and just get better at developing your skills. Plus, physical maturity helps. But I still remain very cautiously optimistic. If we can get what we need to get done in reasonable fashion, I think we're going to be just fine. But I'd be stating, I'd be misleading if I said, the last 2 years have been the standard we want or hope for. And, it is what it is. Obviously, Linderbaum played really well. We've had individuals play well, but for that collective, what we're looking for, we're not there. And I just talked to a young player that was in the game against Illinois. I just asked him this morning, I just happened to look at that film yesterday, and, what were your 2 worst plays? And neither one of them had anything to do with physical. It was all mental. I'm not sure who he had. So he, didn't really block anybody. And next thing you know, we got issues, and just things like that, it's hard to be a good offensive football team if you don't have the confidence to know what your role is and then just do it and let the system work for you, that type of thing. And that's kind of a good illustration, I think, of some of the challenges that we've had. And there are other times where we don't block or finish the way we need to, and I think that's going to be our next step. But the key is going to be getting guys out there where they can work at it long enough and get the reps they need. I'll end by saying this, like, Nick DeYoung's had a really good out of season. He's had injury issues since he's been here. He's had a really good out of season. You can just see him right now. Today was only our first practice, but the confidence that he just seems like a different guy right now because he feels confident. He knows he's trained and ready to go. So those are the kinds of things we have to do. We have to take those kinds of steps individually and collectively, and I'm confident we will as long as we can get those guys on the field. Yep.
Along those lines, what do you see as the next step for Logan Jones after kind of getting thrown into the fire?
Just keep playing. I mean, he does so many good things. And there's not that he, I talked to him about getting his hands up quicker. You see times on film where it's not natural yet, but he will. He will. It's just he's got a great attitude. He kills the out-of-season program. Everything he does, he's just a guy who's always out front, working and pushing. And so it's just a matter of, I think I said this before. We all kind of got sucked into it last year. He just does things with such proficiency. We're playing our first game last year, and I totally forgot that he had never played college football, and that's still a big hurdle. It's a big step for a guy. So he's taken that step now. You can really work on getting better and keep improving, and he's driven that way mentally.
I recall a year ago you were talking about Cooper DeJean. He had you said he had a couple of great plays in the bowl game that led to a good spring, and clearly you were right about that. Were there any guys in the bowl game coming through the spring that you think can kind of ascend on either side of the ball?
Yeah, like I mentioned, Entringer, I thought really had a good, he was showing signs and then he got injured, but, Xavier did play and really did a good job there. And same thing, I'm not saying it's exactly like Cooper's story, but he played more as the year went on and just kept getting more and more comfortable. So, those are the things that have to happen for us, and Cooper was a great example of that. And you look at him now, you wonder why he didn't start all 12 games a year ago. But he wasn't ready. He just wasn't there yet, but he got there. And so that's the fun part about it. And I don't know if I have anything to share with you. Hopefully in 5 weeks I'll have some stories for you like that, hey, this guy's really ascending right now and making that move.
You're
Taking a
right.
look at the QB depth chart, and obviously it's a pretty crowded now. You have Spencer and Joe returning and bringing in a transfer from Wisconsin and Deacon Hill. So is there some sort of competition brewing in terms of QBs 2 and 3 this offseason?
Well, did you mention Spencer?
I know he's injured.
He's out, yeah, and it was a pretty serious surgery he had. So
probably be around as a Hawkeye.
Yeah, I don't think he'll be playing, but we'll see. We'll let that play itself out. But I think it's going to be a really good competition based on what I've seen. And Joe, if you'd seen Joe the first week of preparation, getting ready for the bowl, you might have quit, like I considered. But we hung in there, and he just he did. I thought he did a great job over the course of the month, making major strides. And Peters gets a heck of a assist for doing that. I mean, he was right there in his hip pocket, helping him. Just simple things like making the call in the huddle, which sounds easy, but there's a lot to that for a guy who hadn't been doing it all fall. And where he's at now compared to where he was at in December, it's night and day. He looks like he's been in the program and really kind of catching on to things. So we're excited about him. We're excited about Deacon and excited about Cade, and I think we have a good player coming in to join us here in June as well. So. Again, cautiously optimistic. We'll know a lot more next fall, but I like the group. I think there's good competition. I think they're all good for each other and good with each other.
Talked about the thinness of the offensive line. What kind of numbers are you talking about? And are you thinking about maybe moving some guys over or anything?
No,
like that?
not really. I think we got more than enough if we can keep guys on the field. We just had one pop up a week ago that. He's going to miss the entire spring. So it's just, again, it's frustrating when guys can't practice because that's really where you get better, especially up front on both sides of the ball. It's probably the hardest place to play physically. It takes a little bit more maturity. So there's a challenge there and just that repetition and the work that you can't necessarily get in the out of season. So if there's good news there, the guys I'm talking about have been on the field. It's just that, you just wish they were out there getting all those reps, but it's part of football. You can't do anything about it.
You mentioned Seth and Bonstick. Are they both done for the spring then? And what does that do for the
Bostic for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, Bostic for sure, and then Seth we'll see, but I'm not overly optimistic. Yeah.
What does that do to kind of limit, because they're, new to Cade McNamara, and Cade McNamara's new to them.
The good news is Kate isn't practicing the entire practice, but that'll work itself out. And that is stuff like those guys can do in the summertime. They're going to throw the ball and do 7-on-7s and all those kinds of things. So there's a little bit of a different gap, whereas the linemen don't go out and do one-on-ones. That'd be really stupid. I know recruiting camps do that. I had a heart attack the first time I saw that. I would never let my kid do that. Oh my God. Had 3 kids play football. There's no way. But yeah, that's commentary.
Any new scholarships to report, like anybody on the roster elevated?
Oh, I don't think so right now, but yeah, we'll see. See where we go here.
How have you seen both Stevens and Jennings Dunker progress so far through winter? What are you looking to see from them in the spring?
Both of them had good winter programs, and with Bo, it's all just about slowing things down for him a little bit. So, we've only been on the field one day. I thought he had a good day today. And then Jennings is one of the guys that's out right now. Hopefully we'll get him back the next week or the week after. But he's a guy that needs the reps. Like, he's got all kinds of potential. But at some point you got to learn how to really play, too. And you only do it by being out there.
When you look at your defensive line, it may be the deepest unit on the team, and it was last year as well. And bring in a couple of new guys from junior colleges that have experience at a high level. What's your level of confidence with them, and are they going to be are you going to look to them as being a kind of a primary unit again to kind of lead the charge?
I really like the group, and we lost John. It's a big loss because he really played well last year, and then Lucas. But prior our biggest recruits were the three seniors that came back, and Nico offensively, and then Joe and Noah. I mean, we couldn't go out and recruit 3 guys like that. There's just no way we could get them. Not only in terms of the level of play, but also their value in our program, the appreciation they have, and again, you talk about the leadership void. So you got those 3 guys are at the front of the class. So that's really helpful for us. Deontay's a guy who, again, you talk about ascending players. Last year, I mean, you just watched him, and you could kind of see it coming. But I don't think he's done yet. I think he's got all kinds of upside in front of him too. So. Anxious to see some of these guys. It's going to be interesting. Llewellyn out there, and Ethan Herkett is healthy, and he's got a good motor. So I think collectively, that group has a chance to be a strength for us.
And then you look at running back. We don't talk about that very much, but Caleb Johnson had a really nice freshman year. And then same thing with Jazz Patterson, seemed to ascend late. What do you think of the competition there, those 3, with LaShawn as well?
I think it's healthy, and LaShawn's done a really good job for us. I'll jump back to him in a second. For the first year, Caleb, I thought really did a lot of good things. There's still things he can get better at, and he knows that. And he's, got a great attitude. He's done a really nice job in the classroom. And then Jazz, I said I'd jump back to LaShawn. I think I've referenced there was one play a couple of springs ago where LaShawn made a run. That kind of was like, oh, okay, that's not bad. And I would say the same thing about Jazz. The run he made in the bowl game kind of got my attention. Like, he hit that thing hard. And so I'm really here to see what he's going to look like this spring. I think, again, tremendous young guy, done a really good job in the classroom. He's really settled in well. And, it's going to be fun to watch him compete. So I think it's a really healthy competition right now.
Coach, you've sent a number of different tight ends to the NFL. How do you think Sam Laporta fits into an NFL offense?
He is a tremendous football player. Better guy. We underestimated him, certainly in the recruiting process, and we're really fortunate that we were able to, get him and his mom to come up here and look, and then finally they changed their mind and decided to come here. And I've told the NFL people that will listen, don't make the same mistake we almost made, because he may not be 6'5", but boy, he's a heck of a football player. He's an outstanding tight end. He's an outstanding player. He's got an unbelievable temperament and just loves to compete. He's coming off an injury and plays in the bowl game. Talk about an anti-2022 college football player. He's in the other end of the spectrum. Just like he never even thought about not playing. And we weren't sure he should. We said, you sure you don't want to think about this? But it's just how he's wired, and that's rare in this day and age. And I'm not giving commentary on anybody else, but it's just that'll continue to serve him well. He's a unbelievable football player and a great guy, really good guy. Feel the same way about all those guys that were out there Monday. It's just a really good group of guys. Okay, we'll see you in a couple of weeks. Thank you.
Thanks.